I could never let you leave. This means everything to me. Big mama. Baby, I'm a fight for it. Baby, I'm a fight for it. Baby, I'm a fight for it. Fight for it.
At 3:30 p.m. on March 23, 2012, multiple 911 calls suddenly pour in from the 100 block of Kenmore Avenue on Syracuse's south side.
Syracuse is a small town. We have a big university. That's pretty much what we're known for, Syracuse University. Right outside, like literally down the street from the university, is the south side. Right below the university is poverty. The south side of Syracuse is a high poverty area, a lot of violence. It can be scary. It can be scary for someone that does not know the area.
I was just fresh out of the academy as a police officer, and I remember the call, shots fired call came in, shooting, that a male had been shot. We were close by, so we were able to respond pretty quickly. So the scene was still very fresh, very chaotic, where people were outside, so there was people all over. The residents were pointing to where the victim was. I remember running up to the house, it was a white house, green porch, I'll never forget.
The victim, a black male in his 30s, lies just a few feet away.
There was a construction worker in the area that had quickly responded before we got there, and he was helping do some first aid. Then we took over, me and my partner.
He shot what appears to be, a single gunshot wound to his lower back.
There was still some level of consciousness, gasping for air. I remember that vividly. He grabbed onto the uniform and, said, "Help me."
Paramedics arrive, followed by several of the victim's family members who have gotten word of the shooting.
One of the first things we learned after talking to bystanders is that the victim is 33-year-old Chance Gathers.
He could see me. He was looking at me, reaching for me. He was just reaching out for me, like, I couldn't understand what he was saying. He couldn't really get the words out, but I just kept telling him I was there.
As Chance is loaded in the ambulance, the responding officers attempt to speak with him.
The only chance we might have to identify the suspect would be from what the victim tells us.
But Chance can no longer speak.
Basically just gasping for air. He couldn't talk.
Chance David Gathers was born on October 14, 1978 in Syracuse, New York, to Onetha Gathers and Haywood Richardson Jr.
Chance Gathers is a native of Syracuse. This is his hometown. He's from a big family. Chance has 2 sisters on his mother's side, and on his father's side, he's one of 22 children. So this is a huge family.
He had a good relationship with his mom. He even had a good relationship with his dad. His dad had a lot of kids, and he did what he could. He was there for them.
He had the brightest, most beautiful white smile. Everything was funny. You know what I mean? It was always a joke. He asked a lot of questions. He was very observant.
While still a young man himself, Chance's siblings began having kids. Chance quickly became the favorite uncle.
He would go get a haircut. He would have to go grab nephews and little cousins and godsons and always have a bunch of kids with him getting haircut just every week.
Chance was like one of those warm spirits that, like you say, made me feel safe and, always inquired and always would talk to me and ask me what I was thinking, how I was feeling. His hugs were unmatched.
He's known for being a protector to the people he loves. He's sort of among the people who know Chance, he's a gentle giant.
He's tall, muscular, black, big black dude, like a really husky guy. And so he could be intimidating just by his stature. But if you knew him, he's really like a big teddy bear.
On the street, Chance learned to use his size to his advantage.
He was actually bullied a lot as a child, him and his big sister. They got into a lot of fights and picked on until it like kind of made him like, okay, I'm gonna show y'all. Like, and he had that chip on his shoulder for a long time. And it got him in prison, landed him in prison.
He was actually in jail for, I want to say like 11 years he did.
At the age of 30, Chance was released, and he was determined to stay out of prison for good.
When he came home, that's that inner battle that he was fighting. Like who he truly was, that God-fearing, praying man, family man, versus not wanting to back down from what he might have used to be or like what people perceive him to be. He really, that's not ever what he wanted, but like, he did have that battle. But some of the biggest things that he wanted to accomplish was to have his own family, raise his own family. He didn't have any children.
Within a couple of years, Chance felt steady enough to take a step in that direction. He started dating single mother Marisha Stenson.
Chance absolutely courted me. He was very persistent. And it was kind of like matter of fact, like, we're together now. And it wasn't in a way where I was like, run, you know? It was like he was really serious about me. Like any other connections that he had at the time, he clearly was like, look, I'm calling her, anybody, there's nobody but you.
We were talking, and he was like, yo, I love her. I love her. She's so beautiful. Like, yo, no, you don't understand. Like, she do something to me.
6 months into the relationship, Chance popped the question.
He wanted to get married. He told me our date would be June 1st. He set a date and everything. He was really romantic.
Before they could make it to the altar, in April 2012, Chance and Marisha learned they were going to be parents.
When I finally did get pregnant, he was so happy. Like me, I'm like, oh, I got this 4-year-old already. I don't know if I really even need a baby, but if you're happy, I'm happy. Like we're doing this. But he was so excited.
He wasn't one just out here moving around with, you know, having kids with different women and things like that. Like this was gonna be his first child. He was proud. He was excited.
Chances at this point, he's really looking forward to the next phase in his life. Him and his girlfriend are expecting a child, and that's gonna be the biggest thing ever for Chance. This is someone looking ahead to a future with a child and a wife.
But just a few months into the pregnancy, a shooting in broad daylight has Chance fighting for his life. As doctors at University Hospital attempt to save the father-to-be, detectives arrive at the crime scene. They piece together the moments around the shooting.
He tried getting away when the suspect was shooting at him, and you could see that he was eating his food on the porch when that had happened. And it looked like he tried to escape into the backyard to prevent getting fired upon.
Instead, Chance was shot once in the back as he tried to flee.
We don't know where the suspect necessarily ran off to or if he ditched a firearm. So a scene like that, you end up taking almost the whole block that the homicide occurred on, putting up crime scene tape.
They began searching the entire block for physical evidence. Blood splatter, shell casings, things of that nature. They found multiple shell casings on the ground.
We have to figure out what happened. Everyone was still around, so we knew we had some witnesses.
A lot of people were there. It was broad daylight, so people saw this.
Witnesses eagerly point out a link between the gunman and the item police have just discovered.
Police discover a dark-colored cap, and after talking to witnesses, they discovered that it was the shooter's cap.
He had on a hat, a black and blue hat, and a white t-shirt.
If investigators can find the owner of the hat, they might also find the gunman.
Who would want Chance Gathers dead? Who is it that was so bold they decided to just go up to him in broad daylight and shoot him right in front of people?
When detectives looking into the murder of 33-year-old Chance Gathers speak to those who witnessed the brazen crime, they learn the shooter was wearing a dark hat.
If the lab team can find DNA on this hat that was found on the ground, this would be the key to identifying the shooter.
Witnesses give details surrounding the moment the chaos broke out.
Chance was hanging out with a small group of friends on that porch.
We were sitting on a porch, and this young man, came up and he went to go, shooting up on a porch.
Witnesses explained that they did not recognize the shooter. They described that a stranger came up, started arguing with Chance back and forth, opened fire, and then ran off.
Given the fact that no one else was shot, detectives believe the shooter was after one man.
This does not appear to be a random shooting. This looks like a targeted shooting, that someone was trying to very specifically mark this person as their victim.
With no witnesses able to identify the shooter, investigators consider whether they're holding back.
There's people who saw this shooting and they know what happened. Easy enough, right? Just talk to them, solve the crime, right? That's not how it works.
We don't tend to get a lot of cooperation from the community, especially in those high crime areas. So we've had incidents where there's been a shots fired and we'll show up and people sitting on the front porch say they didn't hear or see anything. And just because you're wearing a badge doesn't mean that they're going to want to give information.
There's the don't snitch culture. It's not something that people are comfortable doing, and with good reason. Because if you go to the police and you cooperate and it's known, well, then there could be a target on you.
As investigators wrap up at the crime scene, Chance's friends and family rush to the hospital. They wait on pins and needles for news.
I ran to Upstate Hospital, like up the hill, full speed, no brakes, up the hill. And when I got there, a couple of my family was there. Some of his friends were there.
Nobody can answer questions. His mom gets there, a couple other family members get there. And, eventually they come out with the, I'm sorry, he didn't make it.
The bullet struck Chance in the lower back, and then it traveled up in his body, puncturing his kidney and his aorta, which caused him to bleed to death.
I've seen miracles happen at the hospital, but depending on that round and where it decided to travel in the body, it can just cause significant damage, which you don't have a chance to save.
And my aunt, she just let out this like scream that like will make your skin crawl.
We just need you to identify the body. So his mother and I, we go to the room where he's like laying on a table, naked on the sheet. I mean, it was really hard. It was really hard because being pregnant by yourself is already hard, but like dealing with grief and then not knowing what's next.
Word of Chance's passing reaches detectives.
Police were hopeful that Chance would be able to identify his shooter, but now they won't get that opportunity. Therefore, they must continue the investigation in order to get justice for Chance.
Who is this guy who walked up in broad daylight and shot a bullet, taking the life of Chance Gathers as he sat on a porch eating? Who is this person, and why did this person decide to commit this horrible act?
Still certain that Chance's death was a targeted attack, investigators take a look into his background. They learn that prior to his release from prison 3 years earlier, Chance had a reputation both on the streets and with police.
Chance Gathers was someone that was on law enforcement's radar. Just looking back, Even when he was 14, there was some contact with law enforcement. So there had been a significant time period. If you'd mentioned his name in roll call amongst other officers, he was well known.
Police discovered that Chance had a dark past. He had a criminal history stemming back all the way to 1999.
Chance has had some problems. He's been in a prison. He's been in prison for serious stuff.
Since his release, Chance walked a fine line between staying out of trouble with the law and on the street.
It's very difficult to get labels off of you when they're on. They're attached to you almost forever, unfortunately, especially in a small town like Syracuse. Everyone knows each other, so it's hard. And they talk.
To some people, Chance did have a reputation for being somewhat of a bully, right? The way he explained it to me was like, and what I actually saw was that he would only bully bullies.
You couldn't come around Chance and front like you was this big dog. Because if you big dog, he wants to see. Show me you big dog. He was Mr. Size You Up.
Chance is looking forward to this new part of his life, but the old part of his life is still there, and he's not shying away from it. You know, the old days of Chance being a guy to be reckoned with, he's still very aware of it, and so are other people. And that reputation is going to lead, unfortunately, to some real beefs.
Detectives also learned that Chance's tough guy image hadn't completely protected him.
Chance was being both a participant and also a victim of crime. He had been slashed across his face in the past.
In 1991, Chance arrived at the hospital with a stab wound, but the details of that stabbing were never made clear to police.
Investigators consider whether Chance's killer was attempting to settle a score.
Due to Chance's extensive criminal history, the list of suspects was pretty long.
There's a thing called street justice, and unfortunately, there's no statute of limitations on it. If the street is viewing you as someone who's behind something and there's people that want to hold you accountable for it, unfortunately, that very often results in tragic death.
Detectives in Syracuse are trying to identify the man who fatally shot Chance Gathers in broad daylight.
The reality is that Chance's reputation is going to follow him. And because as much of a gentle giant as he can be, he wasn't always a gentle giant on the streets.
Detectives had their work cut out for them in order to narrow down the list of suspects. Detectives went down a list of anyone who could be seeking payback, and then they moved on and also eliminated anyone who had attempted against Chance's life prior to his death. Detectives worked their way down a list of people who may have felt Chance had wronged them, and one by one, they eliminated suspect after suspect.
And no one in Chance's circle is offering help.
No one came forward. It's either due to fear, it's either due to, well, let the police handle it. Well, the police need help with solving these cases.
A huge problem for police in upstate New York is getting community trust. Because at the end of the day, to solve a crime, you need people to come forward.
2 days after Chance's murder, Syracuse police set up an anonymous tip line, hopeful that the promise of secrecy will encourage someone to come forward.
We have an app where people can send anonymous tips, and I can't even look up your name, even if you want to, but we give people that anonymous option.
Anytime you open up a tip line, you have to take the good with the bad. And now detectives are having to sit through information that's senseless and really has nothing to do with the case.
Most of the tips are dead ends, except for one.
Not only does this person say they witnessed the murder, they also say they recognize the shooter.
So there's a name making its way to police. Police are starting to hear the name Demetrius Hackett.
Demetrius Hackett was born on July 21st, 1992. The second son to Kimberly Freeman and Benjamin Hackett.
The Hackett family was very well known on the west side of Syracuse. They go back generations. Demetrius had an older brother named Pierre, as well as some uncles and many cousins.
A pivotal moment for the Hackett family came on February 23, 1997, when Pierre and Demetrius's grandmother, Virginia, was shot and killed inside her home. Two of her teenage grandsons were also injured in the shooting.
It was later determined that the shooting was intended for another member of Demetrius' family.
The shooting threatened to shatter the Hackett family, but in the end, it brought them closer. Pierre took his role as older brother seriously. He was intent on keeping Demetrius out of trouble.
Pierre did have some run-ins with the law and was involved in some street activities, but his main focus was to ensure that his brother was not part of that lifestyle.
Investigators are puzzled.
Demetrius Hackett is someone who doesn't have a criminal record. He doesn't have a street reputation. It's the opposite. It's a 19-year-old kid who's a football player. He doesn't have any sort of rap sheet. He doesn't have any sort of violent reputation. He's a good kid. And he's someone who, at face value, is, why are you looking at this kid? He's someone who has his whole future ahead of him. And frankly, you know, why would he be involved in something like that?
Then detectives learned that the Hackett family had recently suffered another tremendous loss.
Demetrius' older brother, Pierre, was killed in a shooting in the same neighborhood just 7 months prior.
Investigators take a look at the case file on Pierre's murder. In that moment, the connection between suspect and victim becomes crystal clear.
And whose name appears at the top of the list as a prime suspect? None other than Chance Gathers.
Homicide detectives in Syracuse, New York, finally have a potential suspect in the March 2012 murder of Chance Gathers. The name Demetrius Hackett comes by way of an anonymous tip.
On August 1st, 2011, Demetrius Hackett's brother, Pierre Hackett, was shot and killed broad daylight in the city of Syracuse as he's walking down the street.
During the investigation into Pierre Hackett's murder, a name kept popping up: Chance Gathers.
Investigators dig into the case file.
Pierre Hackett was walking with his cousin, Leroy Hackett Jr., and Leroy's 2 children, leaving a store on the south side of Syracuse.
Suddenly, gunshots rang out.
Pierre told his cousin and the children to run to safety, and he then turned in the direction of the gunfire and was shot in the head once. His father, Benjamin Hackett, was sitting in the car and watched as his son was gunned down right in front of his eyes. A neighbor administered CPR until the ambulance arrived, but Pierre later died in the hospital.
Witnesses on the scene did not see the shooter, but all agreed the gunfire came from the direction of a nearby intersection.
The gunman used a pine tree at that intersection to stay concealed.
According to the report, Chance became a suspect when investigators learned of a beef between him and Pierre.
A lot of the beef stems from one wants to overpower the other, or one person having a beef with someone else, and now their whole family and friends are involved. You know, just the social pressure of, oh, if you don't take care of it, well, I'll take care of it.
It could be a beef over anything, a slight, a perceived slight, someone hitting on a girlfriend.
there were unrelated problems between Chance's friend Pep and Pierre's friend Suave. Pep and Suave were enemies because allegedly, Pep shot Suave's brother Dave years prior.
Suave and Pierre Hackett, they were beefing with Pep, so they still had active beef or whatever. And now Pierre is around or whatever. Pep is hanging with Chance.
In 2011, Pep asked Chance to come along with him while he attempted to broker peace between himself and Suave. When they arrived, Pierre was also there to back up Suave. But instead of striking a truce, tempers flared, mainly Pep's.
When they pull up, Pep started talking crazy, like complete opposite of what was supposed to transpire. And that commenced the beef between them.
Suddenly, Pierre and Chance were also mired in the explosive conflict. When Pierre is gunned down in broad daylight just weeks later, Chance's one-time friend turns on him.
Next thing you know, Pep is over there at the Hackett's dad's house telling them Chance did it.
The Hackett family took Pep's word for the truth.
The Hackett family is convinced that Chance has killed Pierre.
But Chance specifically told me out of his mouth, he said, "Man, I ain't do that, man."
Investigators working the case failed to find any evidence tying Chance or Pep to the murder.
As of March 2012, when Chance Gathers was gunned down, the murder of Pierre Hackett was still considered an open investigation.
Pierre's family is convinced Chance Gathers pulled the trigger that killed Pierre. The police are not so sure, or if they are, the police aren't bringing any charges. The family is just livid that nothing has been done.
Especially Pierre's doting younger brother, Demetrius.
Demetrius is a very emotional guy. He's hot. He's angry. His brother was murdered. He is just completely devastated, as is his family. It's a horrible situation. Demetrius Hackett, someone with no criminal history, who under any other circumstances would never be looked at as a possible suspect in a homicide, is now looking like a prime suspect in the homicide of Chance Gathers. Because he blames Chance for killing his brother, and this is eating away at him.
There's now possible motive for Demetrius to want to retaliate against Chance. There's also a witness who identified Demetrius at the shooting. So now, Demetrius has to be brought in for questioning.
But when detectives go in search of Demetrius Hackett, he's nowhere to be found.
No one, not even his parents, seem to know where he's gone. They don't know if he's laying low, letting the heat die down, or on the run. The fact of the matter is that they cannot get any information as to his whereabouts. They knew that if they had any chance of finding him, they would have to get a warrant and the marshal squad involved, and hopefully get him in alive.
Detectives in Syracuse have issued a warrant for the arrest of Demetrius Hackett.
They had information that the Hackett family believed that Chance was responsible for the death of Demetrius' older brother, Pierre, back in August 2011. Which would lead them to also believe that Chance's murder was perhaps a retaliation. When detectives cannot find Demetrius, they worry that perhaps he might have fled the state. So they go door to door in different neighborhoods in Syracuse trying to find him. Despite the fact that detectives kept hearing that Demetrius was a good kid, he was still considered armed and dangerous. and their job was to get him off the streets as soon as possible.
We just lost a life, and we have to get justice for this life.
Finally, on April 9th, 2012, more than 2 weeks after Chance's murder, the warrant squad tracks down Demetrius Hackett.
So 18 days after the homicide, Demetrius Hackett, who's been in hiding, suddenly is arrested. Demetrius is arrested and charged with the murder of Chance Gathers.
When they arrested Demetrius and charged him, and I found out like the motive was because he thought Chance killed his brother. It was just a real sad situation. 2 guys dead and 1 in jail.
During his interrogation, Demetrius denies any involvement in the murder of Chance Gathers.
Syracuse police are grilling Demetrius about this incident. Demetrius isn't budging. Demetrius isn't going to confess to this crime.
Even without a confession or any physical evidence connecting him to the crime, Demetrius Hackett is charged with second-degree murder.
When Demetrius is arraigned at the courthouse the following day, his mother and father waste no time pleading their son's innocence to the media that gathered outside of the courthouse.
They allege that Chance Gathers had been leveling threats at their family in the months since Pierre's murder.
The Hackett family say that Chance has been terrorizing them for months as they're mourning the death of their loved one. They say he's making their life a living hell on the streets of Syracuse, New York.
Investigators stay focused, knowing they must tighten their case against Demetrius. And there is one item in evidence that could give them what they need.
The baseball cap found at Chance's murder scene dropped by the killer. The DNA lab was able to pull a DNA sample from the baseball cap.
They want to test that hat he left at the scene for DNA. It's a risky move because, yes, DNA is extremely powerful evidence. That can cut both ways because as sure as a DNA match could convict Demetrius, if there's no match, that could be an immediate, huge piece of evidence to just let Demetrius get an acquittal.
Investigators are willing to take the risk, but Demetrius isn't.
Demetrius was asked to provide DNA sample at his own will, but he refused.
Investigators in Syracuse are desperate to strengthen the case against 19-year-old Demetrius Hackett in the shooting death of his alleged enemy, Chance Gathers.
So the police and prosecutors, they think they have their man in Demetrius Hackett. They want to test that hat left at the scene for DNA.
Demetrius, while in custody, was asked to provide DNA sample at his own will, but he refused. So prosecutors went in front of the judge in May 2012 and asked that he was court-ordered to provide DNA sample.
If there's no match, Demetrius is probably going to walk from this crime because what's tying him to this murder? Nothing, other than the fact that his name has come up. And without DNA evidence, I don't think you have a murder case against Demetrius Hackett. The DNA is going to tell the tale. Is Demetrius involved in this crime or is he not?
A judge signs off on the subpoena. Investigators collect a saliva sample from Demetrius, and then they wait.
The DNA testing comes back, and yes, it's a match. That was the hat being worn by Demetrius Hackett. His DNA is now on it, and what's more, witnesses saw him wearing it. This is really hard now for Demetrius to say he was not involved. You can now put Demetrius Hackett at that crime scene, and you could put him there wearing that hat.
Demetrius and his attorneys maintain his innocence despite the new evidence.
His lawyers are starting to consider a new tactic. Demetrius was under an extreme emotional distress at the time he pulled the trigger. This means we're no longer going to deny that he shot Chance, but we're going to show you why he did it.
Extreme emotional distress is a response to a traumatic event where you have a loss of self-control, intense, overwhelming emotions in response to, the traumatic event. Demetrius had good grades. He didn't have a criminal record. This was a traumatic event for him, which may have caused him, to be dealing with extreme emotional distress. This is why his lawyer wanted to argue this for his case.
Prosecutors must consider that this argument could work.
Who's to say that a jury may look at him and say, oh man, we're gonna let this kid get acquitted because he was obviously in a horrible situation. The prosecution knows that, and Demetrius and his attorneys know that. But they also know that if the jury comes back and says, no, it's murder, he's looking at a life sentence.
Prosecutors pursue a plea. On August 30th, 2013, almost a year and a half after Chance's murder, Demetrius Hackett pleads guilty to a reduced charge of first-degree manslaughter.
Demetrius has pled guilty to first-degree manslaughter. He's gonna get a chance to finally speak about what happened on the day that he shot and killed Chance Gathers. Demetrius tells the judge this was a lose-lose situation. Chance Gathers was terrorizing my family. If I didn't take this into my own hands, I'd be dead. He felt it was a kill or be killed type situation and that he made the decision to take out Chance Gathers before Chance Gathers could take out him and members of his family.
Demetrius said in court that he felt like pretty much he had no choice. He said that Chance was threatening him and his family.
The judge responds.
So the judge tells Demetrius that there was no criminal case against Chance Gathers. The police hadn't charged him with that. So even if everybody on the street and in the family knew or heavily suspected Chance killed Pierre, you can't kill someone just because you believe they killed your brother. The court system is not going to justify an eye for an eye. They're just not going to do it.
The judge sentences Demetrius Hackett to 20 years at the Wint Correctional Facility in upstate New York. He'll be eligible for parole in 2029.
At the end of the day, this is a very tragic story about retribution and how the cycle of violence just leads to prison and more tragedy. It certainly does in this case. At the end of the day, Chance Gathers is dead, and Demetrius Hackett is going to be in a prison for the next 20 years. Demetrius wasn't a bad kid. Demetrius was on the right track. The only thing that happened to Demetrius was his family became victim to the cycle of violence in this country. And unfortunately, Demetrius decided to handle it himself.
In this case, one man's struggle with grief became another family's permanent loss.
The changes he made right before he died, I'd rather have had that chance just for a little while than the old Chance, because I know for sure he's in heaven. At some point you do have to break the cycle. Somebody has to do it. I feel like it's only us that can change the culture of the streets and the way that we conduct ourselves. That whole eye for an eye leaves us all blind.
I won't ever let you go. You're my everything and more. Man, I miss my grandma, man. I could never let you smoke it out. This means everything to me. Big mama. Baby, I'ma fight for it. Baby, I'ma fight for it. Fight for it. But you can't never get another Big Mama.